Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Connected Communities EAP. Welcome to members and officers in the room, and also anybody who may be watching us online. Can I remind anybody in the room to keep your phones on silent and your computers on silent? Right, starting off with apologies for absence, David.
Thank you very much, Chair. So we've received apologies from Councillors Bert Jackson, Ian Jelly, Richard Lavelle and Kelly Watts.
And declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No? Jolly good. Right, the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of June 2024. Is everybody happy for me to sign those as a true record of what happened? Jolly good, thank you. And moving swiftly on to the main item on the agenda today, which is the future digital customer experience development. And I've got down here Guy Holloway and David West, but it's going to be David because Guy isn't here. So David, I will hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm David West, I'm the Head of Digital here at the Council. I'm joined by my colleague Stephen Miller, who manages the website content, and he'll be supporting me in this presentation we're going to run through today. It's future digital customer experience developments. The primary core focus of this is really going to be around the corporate website, but because of the nature of that channel, we're going to touch on some other areas as well, so around communications, customer services, and some general digital development. We've broken this down into three sections really today to give us a chance for questions and discussion around each of those sections. So what I'm looking to cover is current performance and metrics of the website to show some benchmarking and some insight into how our corporate website is being used. Then we'll look at improvements and developments, particularly over the last 9 months, and things that have come to fruition in that time period. And then look at some future opportunities and considerations. There's some interesting challenges in there for us as well. Not negative challenges, but things I think we need to be aware of as we progress forward with our sort of digital journey and online journey. And the reason I mentioned corporate website as well, I should say, is because we do have other microsites and other platforms that we link out to from our corporate main site, but the metrics you're going to see are focused on our core North Hants domain. So just to put a little bit of context around the website, the slide I'm showing here is from 23-24 figures, and you'll see over 4 million interactions with us. And 3.5 million of those are around web sessions. I think the easiest way to think of web sessions is visits to the website. So people are coming to the website for a range of reasons, obviously. Some small, maybe just to check a piece of information, but there's a lot of transactions that take place on our website as well. So a real mix of interaction there. I think it just shows the importance of the website as that first point of call for a lot of people for information, but also that transactional element we'll explore a little further with some of the metrics as well. And then I was just going to jump into some current performance metrics and some benchmarking to give you a feel for how the website does perform. And these figures we're looking at are for Q1 and Q2 of this year. So again, if we think of sessions as visits to the site, I suppose a session would be me visiting the site today. I might look at 5 pages, that would be one session. I might come back tomorrow and have another look, that would be a second session. But in Q1, Q2, we've had 1.9 million sessions, and we've had 4.9 million views, so a page view, individual views of web pages. And we've also got a lot of work that happens with our forms package. So a lot of our transactions happen via our forms package, which is linked to via the website. And there's some really interesting figures on this as well. So we have around 386 forms on our website that members of the public, residents, businesses can engage with us on. And we have 139,000 forms completed in period for Q1, Q2. Those forms will be of varying complexity, so some of them may be really simple, maybe contact forms that are filled in. Some will be much more complex and integrated with back office systems, so a real range of complexity in terms of development of those forms. We have a satisfaction rating score on our forms package, so anytime a form is completed, we ask anyone completing it to rate the experience of using the form, so not rating the service they're requesting, but rating the form itself. So we score 4.4 out of 5 for that, which is, I think, really good considering the number of forms we're getting and the range of services. I'll just briefly mention as well a figure around payments. We obviously take a lot of online payments on our website. And this figure we're going to share of 23.4 million is for Q1, Q2, I suppose the value of payments taken online. That's not the full story, to be honest. There are more payments taken on other platforms. The other platforms I mentioned aren't necessarily our core system. So there'll be other payments taken as well. On our core site, we've had 132,000 transactions in Q1, Q2. Just a little bit of benchmarking as well. So we have a number of automated tools that monitor our website to help us improve going forward, identify any issues and areas of concern that we can jump on and make improvements to fix. These are our latest scores from a tool we use on our website ourselves, an automated tool that checks for us. Heartbeat performance at 100%, that's really a reference to the performance of the site in terms of uptime, speed it's being served to our residents. Data privacy is really an indication that we have no issues around data privacy on our site. The bottom two are quite interesting because we do get an industry benchmark as well for those. So quality assurance, the 99%, is testament to the quality of the content on our website. So really that's saying it's accessible content, well-written content, well-maintained content. Industry average there of 76%, so we are a sort of significant increase on the industry average. Industry average really there is a reference to government sector, is how it's defined in the tool itself. So, apologies.
Can I ask a question? So who tests the quality assurance? Because I understand what you're saying, but actually it's subjective, isn't it, somewhat?
So this is automated rather than sort of a qualitative piece. So it is an automated tool we use, so we've purchased into, and it will run a number of tests to gauge that. It will check for things like misspellings, sentence structure, the quality of written sentences using algorithms and tools in that sense.
I understand that. Yeah. Thank you.
The final mark I was going to mention was a 94% search engine optimization. So that's often thought of, I suppose, as more a commercial measure, search engine optimization. So it's essentially how easy is it to for Google or other search engines to rank our content, and how well do we rank. The reason I put that on there, and I find that an interesting figure for us, is that most of our traffic comes from a search engine initially. So the better we rank on those search engines, the better it is for the customer to get to that information as quickly as possible. Again, the industry average there, same sector, government sector, of 84%. So you can see a sort of 10-point percentage increase there on our performance. And the final metric I was going to mention at this stage is around accessibility. So we also have an automated tool ourselves that measures this, but I've used the 99% figure because this comes from what's called the Silk Tide Index. This is a company that monitors all public sector websites and creates an index for sections and sectors of the public sector. So we always rank, I suppose, very highly on that. We tend to be in the top 10 ranks of UK councils on that Silk Tide Index. So our 99% figure it will fluctuate obviously a little, but it tends to be around that mark regularly. And we're always making improvements on our accessibility issues and anything that's highlighted by these reports to increase that score. Important for a couple of reasons, the accessibility score. There is the public sector accessibility regulations we do need to meet, so this helps us align to that so that our website's meeting those. But also, accessibility scores are just really a good measure of how accessible your site is for all of your residents and businesses. So an accessible site is usually a much better site to use and much easier to use. So a really good score for us in that sense as well. At that point, I was just going to pause, and if perhaps for yourself, Chair, take any questions or any discussion points around the initial metrics before we moved on.
Thank you, David. Before I throw it open to other people, the search engine, that's certainly something that has always attracted criticism. While we've just been sitting here, I've just gone onto the search, and I've typed in my name, and it's coming up telling me that there's they couldn't find anything of what they were looking for. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, so I should say the scores I've shown here are external search scores, so Google getting to us. But yes, on our internal search, we have done quite a lot of work on that. Appreciate there are some issues. I'm surprised by that particular issue you've just highlighted there, because we did some work to try and resolve that. So obviously something has been an issue of late, because we did do a lot of work to ensure that key information, particularly around committees and members, would be available on that site. So something may have gone wrong there since we made that fix, so we can investigate that and take that away and resolve that quickly.
Other councillors come up.
Sorry. We'll take that one away and resolve that quickly. It shouldn't be the case at this point.
Okay. Anything else? Dorothy. Sorry, Councillor Maxwell.
Telephone calls. Do you monitor? I mean, you had up there the how many telephone calls you have, but do you monitor the actual how long the person has to wait on the telephone system?
So my team don't. I look after the website, but
Yeah.
we do work very closely with our customer services
Yeah.
team, who will monitor the phones themselves and have metrics on that. I don't have the detail to share with you at this
No.
point, but I know Simon Mills, who looks after that area, would be able to provide some metrics on that.
Well, no. The reason why I'm asking is that so when you phone up, you're sitting there waiting for somebody to answer the phone. That could be like yesterday. It was like 20 minutes actually, and I just think that if you like the doctor's one has there are 11 people waiting. You don't have that system where you know how many people are waiting to get answered on their phone call. I just wondered whether or not that would help residents who do phone up about how long they have to wait, because it can be it depends on what it is. Like yesterday, it was about the dustbins, and I think it would help them if they knew how long they're going to have to. Not how long, but where they are in the queue, which I don't think comes up at the moment.
So the work we're doing with customer services at the moment, I think we're hoping to look at sort of the wider metrics shared, combined to the metrics that they're able to produce and the metrics we can see online, and then work together to explore customer journeys in a more wider sense, I suppose. So not just focusing like myself on the website and customer service on their channels, but a sort of more holistic look at those channels collectively for that wider customer experience piece. And it's certainly something that I can speak to Simon Mills about, and we can discuss that option.
Yeah, because what's happened is you go through like the 4 sites, so either Kettering, and so if we come down to, we're the last ones, we're always the last ones, Corby, Nice, Northampton, in the list of things. But I don't think the customers, or myself, I didn't realise just how many people until now actually make phone calls. So I was quite staggered actually how many people do. And I just think it would, I think that people would be much more understanding if they knew how many people actually phone up in a day, for instance, which is quite...
From a web team perspective, we're always working with customer services to try and support them and try and reduce the queues as much as we possibly can, because we know that they can be really frustrating. So something that we launched with customer services is in those queue messages, if you're waiting for a long time and say you were trying to get through to council tax, for example, the messaging would turn around and say, did you know you could do this, this and this online? And actually that saves you waiting in the queue in the first place. Obviously that's not going to be okay for all users, because vulnerable people still need to be able to get through to someone on the phone. But if we can divert some of those people away to the website and get their query dealt with really quickly online and stop them waiting in the queue for that 20 minutes that you've said, that's really going to help people, and it will shorten the queue for those people who really do need to talk to customer services and vulnerable people. something that we've kind of said to them is think of the website as your local GP. You go to them for kind of base health issues, but when you need to talk to customer services, that's the point where it's a really complex query and it's the equivalent of visiting A&E. So we're there as a website team to try and direct those simple queries away and get those queues down a bit.
Use your microphone, Dorothy. Use your microphone.
A lot of my residents don't have computers, you know, they don't have laptops or computers, and they're just solely reliant on the telephone. And I think that's okay if you've got those facilities, but if you haven't, you know, you are reliant on the telephone. And I think that it's waiting around. I think that people are doing, and equally, I think it would. Yeah, I think it would help. Unlike the doctors, where you know where you are in the queue, you could be sitting there for ages either, as well. But I think it's just that, I feel some of my residents aren't necessary. I mean, I'm not disparaging here, a bit clued up really, but don't really understand.
And that's 100% and absolutely fair enough. And we want to divert people away where they can do something online. So if you've got a resident like that who doesn't have a laptop or a mobile phone, we want them to be able to get through to customer services really easily. So we're kind of in a push to get people online if they can do it, and that will free up your residents to get through to customer services straight away.
The other problem was that yesterday, so they were actually informed that all the dust carts have computers on board, which I do know that is the case, but there are some apparently which don't. So you have a list of all the residents. You have a list of which roads you've got to go to. This is my thinking, right? If you haven't got a computer, right? But what I found out yesterday, which was quite interesting, which I wasn't aware of, is that if you have a blue badge or you have a disability, the actual person from the dust cart will pop into your garden, pick up the brown bin and wheel it through. Well, this person yesterday didn't realise that was available. And I just think its information needs to be wider so people are aware of that. Because I wasn't aware that they did this service. I just think it would help them. And of course they are more concerned about blocking up the pavement. That was the issue yesterday. Yeah.
I think you've mentioned several points, and certainly I think the registering for people to actually have assistance with moving their bins to this end of to the curtilage of their property is one thing. As far as the position in queue, at the moment, because there are so many queues, and I look at the wallboard that our call centres see, and there's umpteen different queues there. It'd be very, very difficult to actually, at this stage, tell people where they are in a queue, because you don't know. As things improve, as we become closer to one council, then we will be in a position where these queues will be more refined and we can actually say where people are in the queues. Councillor Brackenbury.
I haven't got a question. I just think the data is very good for this council, and I reiterate what you said. I actually took the opportunity to go to the Customer Services Centre in Thrapston, and it was really interesting to see the calls and hear the calls they were having. And I don't think it would be of any use to know where you are in the queue, because you don't know how many people are answering those calls. So you might be 20, and if there's 10 people answering calls, it's not going to take as long as if one person is there.
But what I was trying to explain is that, unlike, I think if you knew that you were like 20 in the queue, but you got the opportunity to put in and it phones back, you could actually then turn off your phone and
Sorry,
go back.
No, I was just going to say that the team here will probably take those comments away and have those conversations with the customer services team ensuring so that, because obviously we need to try and get through this paper and look at the website.
David?
Thank you very much for those comments. I think they do show the interplay between sort of the digital space, customer services and communications that we were talking about. So I think we will certainly take that away and have those discussions. The next section we were going to look at was some of the, I suppose, more recent improvements and developments and activity that's taken place, particularly on the website, a little further than just the website. So I was just going to run through the top bullet point on here around some of the unification and development of key digital services. And then we've got a couple of examples as well around the processes that we put in place around insight provision. And so the data and insight we have, quantitative and qualitative, to help us inform the decisions we take around our website and our sort of future activity. So to start with, I suppose I just want to mention some key things that have perhaps come to fruition this year, despite the fact there was a lot of work obviously ongoing over the last couple of years in some of these things. We now have that one website. So previously, obviously, there were legacy websites, but we are now in a period where we have one website that is that point of truth for the whole of North Hants. That's meant we've been able to close some old content management systems down as well, and we're now on that sort of one content management system for managing the website. It's a similar story for our forms package and those digital transactions. We're now on that one central package. Our payment solution, so this wasn't sort of my team directly, but we make significant use of this online payments provider, as you've seen from those metrics, and we integrate that with the forms package. So that's been a real boon to us as well, having that one payment solution. We now have that one customer relationship management system as well. So we've built that using the development platform that I mentioned as the next point. And we've only this month recently, actually, we've finished the phase 3 of that project. So we now have that one CRM that we can use across the council. There's further work to do on it and improvements, as you'd expect, as there will be ongoing. But we are now at that point where we have that one platform that's available to all customer services teams. Our development platform I mentioned, we're doing other things on that development platform as well. So that gives us a space where we can create and develop, I'd call perhaps more complex transactions, database work. So, and a good example of that is we're looking at our Blue Badge system at the moment and building that on that development platform. This is more a staff internal thing, but one intranet as well we have for staff to get information, core information, corporate information in one place. The second part of this, I think, is a really interesting area. So this is about understanding our users, to make sure that we are designing our digital services around our users and their needs and what they're telling us their needs are. We've started to implement some insight work. And I was going to hand over to Stephen to talk through some of this because he's been implementing some of this work relatively recently.
Okay, so first of all, we are looking at all our statistics that we get on the site, and we're monitoring the site more closely to see what it's doing, what our customers are kind of doing on the website. Something that we're gradually building up at the moment, and this again is to kind of support customer services, is do comparison tests between certain forms. So for example, we've got our council tax and benefits forms. That's move, apply for benefits, make a council tax change or make a benefits change. Customer services use the exact same form, but they're internal versions of the form, and we've now got an external version of the same form for customers to use. And what we're doing is looking at the ratios of that and looking at the stats and seeing if there's any way we can improve those forms so customers are more likely to go online and fill them in rather than waiting in the queue for however long to talk to customer services when they could sort it out within minutes on the website. So that's our stats dashboard. What we have also launched or soft launched is our test lab. So Test Lab is actually talking to people about their experiences on the website, testing certain sections to see how well it works. We started that with customer services in July, and we had my team look at a section of the website for that, just to identify where we could make improvements and kind of look at further testing opportunities. We also, in the past month, have expanded that out to residents. So we visited the Kettering Customer Service Centre, so people taking blood tests or visiting customer services. I literally, at that point at reception, talked people into actually testing the website with us and hearing directly from residents and looking at how we can improve the site. So we looked at housing for that as an example. And we're going to roll it out a bit more fully now at this point. So we want to get more residents involved in all of that testing, because at the end of the day, they're the ones using the website and we need to make it work for them. And that includes any forms that we've got as well. We also want to expand it out to councillors. So this is a good opportunity now to actually invite you all and the rest of the councillors as well, because you've got a unique viewpoint on the website. You use the website as a customer, you represent your residents, you can hear kind of what issues they run into. So we'd really like to expand it out to you guys as well. And we've also got a group of neurodiverse users as well, so we can look at the accessibility of certain sections and the language of certain sections to make sure that that user journey works for them as well in kind of a simple, easy way. In terms of the improvements that we've made, take the housing section, for example. The Keyways Housing Register, which we all know as Keyways, we didn't actually have a Keyways section at all on the website until the last few months. We've created that. Previously, what we did was just send people off to the Keyways website and let them register. We've actually provided some higher quality information now and created a whole section for them. But some of the examples that come up through the user testing was no one knew what Keyways actually was to begin with. If you're a normal resident who wants to look up at the housing register, you're going to search for housing register. Whereas we in the council and as a service were just titling all of our pages, Keyways this, Keyways that, Keyways. And that meant people couldn't find the information they were looking for in a kind of quick and easy way. So we've simplified the language on all those pages and refer to it as the housing register. And we don't refer to it as Keyways as kind of the first name on those pages. And then we've kind of combined and simplified pages we can just to simplify user journeys, and we've given the housing section a little bit of a facelift, and that's ongoing at the moment with more images, and also made sure that our headings, whether they're in the page structure themselves or the page titles, are as simple as they possibly can be so people can find what they look for. There was some research done, and this is kind of in relation to like FAQs and things like that. People don't search for whole questions on the internet. If you're reading a piece of content, your brain automatically scans for keywords. So we make sure that our headings and our page titles are those keywords. So we don't say, what day is my bin collected as the page title. The page title will be something along the lines of bin days or bin collection days, as those are the keywords for those items. So that's what we've been doing with the test lab. We're going to expand that out, hopefully to councillors as well. And then we kind of move on to search. In Q1 and Q2, over 242,000 searches on the website. So this is using the internal website search, not Google search. It's really heavily used, which shows why we need to absolutely get that right. It's an ongoing piece of work. We've got smart search functionality now, so effectively what that means is that we can add key search terms to our search engine and make it a bit more clever. A good example of that would be garden waste. When garden waste was launched, the keywords garden waste would come up in the search. But we found that actually other people were searching for things like green waste, and that would break the system completely, unfortunately. But now we can add those keywords and you can search for green waste instead, and then those results will come up. We've also started pushing main landing pages to the front. So if you search for council tax, it would bring up council tax pages, but it wouldn't bring up the main landing page. So that's been done. Keyword recognition has been improved as well. So previously, if you search for a previous phrase, it would have to find the exact phrase, which is a bit odd. Why not pick up individual words to guarantee more and better results? So that's something that we've implemented now. Promoted search, we've also done, so if there's a real key event such as an election that's coming up or the fireworks display or whatever else, we've now got the opportunity to talk to those services and say, do you want that to be a promoted search? And top tasks as well. In the rare instances we can't find anything at all, we've got a list of top tasks such as that's council tax, single person discount, or your bin, find out your bin day, or report a missed bin, or whatever those top tasks are. It gives you a list of those just so we can try and drive that customer journey forward rather than just kind of giving up and say no search results found whatsoever.
And that, I suppose, was the end of that section. So if there were any comments or queries around that, we're very happy to take any of those through the chair.
Well, have two comments really, but the first one's the housing. Now, that's something that I'm dealing with quite frequently with residents, right? And I actually, be quite frank and honest, I'm not quite sure how it really operates. So where the resident has to log on each week in order to apply for a house, right, or a flat or whatever it may be. I'm not sure whether it actually tells you that what the vacancies are, how many people are applying for that particular house.
I don't think it tells you exactly how many people have applied for it, but it's not my system, but off the top of my head and from my customer service days, it will tell you when you bid on the property, before you bid, it'll tell you what your likely rank you're going to get, because it's all about priority need. And then it'll tell you on an ongoing basis what place you're in. So if you're in 5th place, it'll tell you that, because effectively it'll be able to tell you that, but I don't think it tells you exactly how many people have bid on the property. But it gives you the information you need to decide whether or not.
I think that's where the confusion is. So you've got the the different providers providing housing, right? But I don't. Well, this is only my thinking. There doesn't seem to be any joined-up thinking, like. So if you've got Grand Union, right, so have got houses, I think what's happened is that some companies are buying plots of land and then doing like 4 houses there and 6 houses there, but it's not obviously in the same place. But I think there is some confusion. I just think that, I mean, I realise that doesn't, that's not your remit.
I think that's something that you should be taking up with housing rather than taking up with the people who did it. These guys are the messengers.
Yes,
they're not the people who actually, dare I say, provide the information.
I understand that. I just think it needs to be slightly clearer. That's my thinking.
And to be fair, that is something that we looked at, because previously we didn't have that Keyways section and the pages explaining how Keyways worked in terms of what the priorities are and how the bidding system works. We didn't have any information about that at all. So now we've created that. That will hopefully help residents understand the whole system a bit better before they start applying and bidding on properties.
And then the other question, I mean, just going back to the bins again, right? So the actual, where the bin man just leave your bin sitting outside, not having emptied it and so forth, and then comes up with some excuse that you haven't paid up. That's the biggest, to me, the biggest problem at the moment, where the joined-up thinking between paying for it and not paying for it. But of course, East Northants, which is where we live, we're not actually in line with the other, because we're not part of the council. The bins are separate.
It's a third-party contractor,
we have a
isn't
different
it?
contract, right?
Yeah,
I just want.
I think, Councillor Maxwell, a lot of that you need to take up with waste as well.
Okay,
and the waste department.
Yeah, okay, understand.
I would say for bins and a website perspective, you can report a missed bin online. something that we recently launched in Kettering and Corby of the missed bin form is that it will do a check on the system to see if there's a reason why it hasn't collected it, and that would stop a resident from reporting a missed bin if, say, the bin was contaminated with, say, the recycling bin, and something that shouldn't go in the recycling bin's in there. It can block a missed bin report from going in. And all of this kind of automation helps us automatically raise a missed bin request for those missed areas rather than having to deal with any manual intervention. So Kettering advises, for instance, for a missed bin, we'd have a form, but it would email through to the customer services team. Then they'd have to do all the necessary checks and then all that admin work to decide whether or not it's appropriate to raise a missed bin. Now, for the Kettering area, because those checks are automatically in place and the form system checks our back-end bin system, it means the form can decide that quickly, and as soon as it's submitted, it'll get that service request raised with the department, saving loads of admin time and not needing to wait on customer services to deal with the query. So that's the type of thing that we've been doing in by working with the bin team and customer services with their CRM system. And in regards, I think you said before about the assisted bin collections, that's a service that we discuss on the website. It's available to look at, and you can apply for that online as well, and that'll go to the team straight away to take a look at that and decide who can get help.
Perhaps sometimes more information needs to be fed down, I think, to councillors. I'm not saying we don't. We do try to keep up with everything, but we're not always aware of what exactly is going on. So I might be wrong there.
Anything else? No? David?
Thank you very much for those comments. The final section I was just going to share was around future opportunities and considerations. And there's a real mixed bag I'm going to share on these next two slides. My plan... Oh, excuse me, that's not... There we go. I was just going to briefly discuss each of the items on the next two slides to give a quick overview, to allow us some time to delve into anything more in any more detail if you'd like to. But I think some of these things are things that have been around for a while, but have evolved to some extent. And some of these things are new and emerging technology, I suppose, and how they might impact us going forward. I think the top one on the future of web service and browsing I find a really interesting topic. I do this myself now, in that when I Google something, the sort of AI overview Google often provides at the top is where I get a lot of my answers. So I'm not actually clicking through to a website at all. I'm getting my answer within Google. And similarly, I often use sort of the Bing AI chatbot to get answers as well. So it's just an interesting dynamic that people aren't necessarily always clicking through to the site to get the information they're looking for. And that might increase, I suppose, going forward. And it's a similar scenario, I suppose, with voice search and voice assistants, that in some instances now there's a lot of voice search taking place. So you might be asking a voice assistant or asking your phone to search for something, and you might be getting a response, generally informational responses rather than transactional when we're looking at voice, but you might get a response without seeing the website itself. So I suppose what's key for us is to optimize our site so that we're something that's being used in those scenarios, that our site is very usable by those tools to surface our key information. The general advice at the moment tends to be to use search engine optimization, which we do anyway. So I think we're fine as we stand, but it's something that I think is really interesting to follow how that develops. Web chats and sort of AI bot chat tools as well. I think I read a recent piece about 14% of councils are using an AI bot now, or local authorities in the UK and Ireland. A similar amount are using a sort of more human interface chatbot. But it's a really interesting area. There's lots of potential benefits to it. There's the question around human interaction, that hybrid between human and maybe a branching tool or an AI tool, and that move to AI completely for that bot, which is often at the moment an AI tool, is the chatbot is crawling an organisation's website and pointing people to information that exists on the website. But a really interesting area to explore. The ROI of implementing some of that is an interesting one I think we'd want to look at as well. I read an interesting report around certainly web chat tools maybe not being that much more of a return on investment when you compare that to a telephone call. So it's just some interesting data we'd want to get into, I think, in that space, if we look at that. Mobile experience I mentioned, mainly around the apps option. So we don't have a mobile app, but we do have a mobile optimized website. So other councils and authorities do have apps. It's interesting, I've spoken to a few vendors recently, and they've sort of moved away from offering the app tool and the app builder because they're saying mobile optimized sites seem to be the way that everyone is going. So it's not the demand for the app. But some people will make use of that, and there are some interesting functionality within apps that we can maybe pull out from the app experience and build without the need for building an app. So I mentioned push notifications. That's something I think is really interesting. A kind of, I suppose in very simple terms, it could be a push to your mobile phone to say, actually, remember your bin goes out tonight. So it's something as simple as that. Functionality is really interesting. You don't necessarily have to have an app to do that, but that's an interesting approach I think would be good to look at. As I mentioned, we're now that one council. We don't have those legacy councils. So I think that came about this year. So it gives us a chance now to look at the website. Do we want to refresh areas? And there's a little bit of a conversation that's supposed to be had around certain sections of the site. We're a very functional, transactional site. That tends to be how people use our main sort of website. But there is a case for areas where there might want to be a bit more of an experience when you come to the site rather than just a function transaction. So that's something I think we need to look at with services as well. User accounts is like I suppose you would see maybe on something like an Amazon or a Netflix, where you have your accounts and you can see what you've done. You've got your history. So it might be you log a number of reports or payments, and you can see sort of in your account what you've done recently and any status updates. It's quite a lot of complexity. There's a lot we could look into in that space. We have, as I mentioned, different portals. So you've got different information in different portals. So bringing that together under one hub is a significant piece of work. But it's an interesting area. There's also a debate, I suppose, around the number of people that want to come to the council website to do one task, and that's it. I've completed that task, to those that maybe come back a bit more regularly. So there's a distinction between audiences we'd want to think about as well, I think. Linked to that heavily is that personalisation automation piece. Can really enhance your user experience, like a sort of Netflix or an Amazon. It can see what you've done before, or based on things that you've chosen or selected, it can maybe surface some information that's relevant to you automatically because it knows that's what you're interested in or that's what you've looked at before. There's a lot of questions and queries we'd have to look into around that as well, but it's an interesting area. Even if we take small pieces of these and develop small pieces that we think are wins, there's an interesting conversation around that. And these items are maybe not quite as really related to the website, but certainly as an integration and a synergy between them. So I think digital marketing is something we want to have a think about. How do we integrate that more with the website? The sort of popularity of social media and social messaging channels, the popularity of video online as well. How do we make more use of that on our website to tell our stories, to help our users in their journeys? And promote and communicate, I suppose, some of those things that's come up about the communication element. We do have electronic newsletters we send out currently. There is opportunities there to develop those further, certainly. And a little bit in the same way to maybe that personalisation of the website experience, we could personalise and automate updates and information going to people based on their selections or maybe what they've clicked on in a newsletter because we know they're interested in that. Again, a lot we can explore in that space. I mentioned microsites because we do have other sites that exist outside of the core domain for different reasons, and it might be worth us having a look at, can we have a platform that could be used for all those sites to be built on. So at the moment we have certain third-party sites being developed, but we might want to look at a platform that we can have them all on. Our development platform is what I mentioned previously about our CRM system and our blue badge being built on this development platform. There's lots of opportunities there to see what other services we could bring on board. And I've left this in, it's a bit of a reiteration, a bit of a callback to earlier. I think all of these are some really interesting opportunities for us to explore now. We're sort of at that point where I think we've got the website up and running, we've got things on one system. We can now start to explore how we enhance and improve. And I think driving that by user insight quantitative and qualitative about what residents want, what they're doing, how we can see what's going to impact them the most. I think is going to be really key for that. So some of the work Stephen outlined, I think, is really important to help us move forward with our choices around development and improvement. And that was the end of this section as well, Chair. So the end of our presentation. If there are any further comments.
Yeah, Wellingborough and Kettering used to have, but was it Wellingborough and Kettering, Corby and Kettering used to have user accounts.
I'm not sure if that would have been linked to our transactional forms package or linked to our... It might have been both were linked to our forms and transactional package, as well as maybe a website package. Apologies, that was a little bit before my time, so I'm not sure of the detail of that. But there are a lot of options for user accounts that we could certainly look at from platforms we have. One of the interesting things about how do you bring those different platforms together? Do you bring them together under one account? But I don't know if you found those useful from your experience of if Kettering and Corby had those accounts, if residents mentioned that to yourself and the use of that.
It probably was, but it was a far smaller concept. So, you know, I can see why we haven't got them at the moment, but it'd be quite useful to start getting back into that.
Yeah.
It's always useful to be able to go back to a site and know where you've been on that site in the past.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot we could explore there. It could be really interesting for residents.
Anything else?
Well, this may not be relevant actually, but something I came across this week was, it was in the toilet actually, to do a sports centre. And it was asking you to photograph yourself and then send that photograph on this app, right? Now that's quite worrying actually for children, because why would they be, whoever put it up, I don't know who put it up. And the other thing was, they hadn't put who'd actually put this notice up and where it was actually going. So I think there's some worrying factors about some aspects of technology. I mean, I'm not completely au fait with everything, that is requesting certain information, but you're not quite sure where it's going to, this information.
It's really, really important. So we work with the data protection team where necessary, and we make sure that all our forms don't ask unnecessary questions in the first place. We've got privacy, service-specific privacy notices on the site that outlines how data is used in the first place. Even things like we've currently got 4 different council tax account systems, and they're going to merge into one over the next month. But that asks a lot of security-related questions before you can even access that data, and it won't be asking for silly things like photos or anything like that. But data privacy has always been at the forefront, and we've got really good stats that show the website is secure. And even things like tracking kind of cookies, our analytics cookies for Google that give us a lot of those stats. You can reject those, and legally you are allowed to reject those cookies in the first place. Just in regards to those cookies, in theory we should have a lot better stats than what we've actually shown you today. For example, when I was back running the Kettering website back in the day, we used to have Google Analytics cookies that you had to have on whether you liked it or not. There wasn't any way to refuse them. And we made a change and allowed people to say no to that cookie. Immediately, our site stats dropped by 1/3, just overnight. So our stats are probably a lot better than what we think, but we're more privacy focused now, and we give people that choice of saying, no, I don't want you to have that cookie. I don't want you to even track me for those base analytics.
I think the worrying part about it is that, well, I'd like to be reassured that we don't take more information than we actually need, because I think residents are somewhat sceptical about how much information you're gaining about them. And I think that that can be worrying. On the other hand, I can see that sometimes it's useful, but I've become quite worried about certain information going into the council, and then they're thinking, well, where does it end up?
Yeah, we have created forms for certain services before, and there have been instances where I personally have questioned it and said, why do you need this data? Why are you asking this question on the form? And even after they've given me an answer, I'll then go and talk to the data protection team and just confirm that that reason is okay and that that's an acceptable point. So it goes through layers if it's a controversial piece of information. But obviously there's a degree of common sense where if it's a benefits claim, for example, and someone's claiming online, we of course are going to ask for their national insurance number and date of birth and that sort of thing. But if someone's just signing up for a newsletter, for example, there's no reason for us to have that information. That's why we don't ask for it on our forms. And if we in any way want to question it, we'll do so with the service and the data protection team just to make sure that we're getting it right, because we do want residents to have full confidence that the data is being used properly. And I think as well, like in the customer service CRM system, even that now, the new joint one has been locked down. So if certain services need access to that customer data, such as the bin team, for example, I think they can only look at bin data. They can't look at other things that the customer has phoned up about customer services. So privacy and data protection is really important for that whole customer journey.
So is there some safeguarding? So, for instance, as you were saying about the bins, for instance, they can find out about, the number of the house and so forth, but beyond that, that's it. They can't find out other information about you. And I think that's...
Yeah, so if they phoned up with, say, a bin query and wanted to report a missed bin, the bin team can then delve and find other information about, say, adult social services and any calls that the customer made about that kind of subject matter. So those safeguards are being put in place by that project team from the ground up just to make sure that happens.
Okay.
I would just add, if that's okay, Chair, on that point, because I know from the final two slides there, I've talked about a lot of personalisation and automation, which would rely on a lot of data from individuals. But I think none of this is in play at the moment, and this would be very much a piece that you would be asking permission for those information and making people very aware if we did go down that route of personalisation to their benefit, not for us, for their experience to be improved, but we would certainly work with all our sort of data protection information governance teams around anything we did in that space.
And the other thing is, you don't want people being hacked into, I mean, that's, what you've got to protect, haven't you, when you're dealing with large amount of residents, the last thing they want to know is safe, whatever information they give. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. Moving swiftly on to the next item, which is the Executive Forward Plan. Is that circulated around everybody or just circulated around the exec?
No, it goes to all members and it's published on the council's website for people to access. Chair.
Okay.
So the version in the papers covers the period October 24 to January 25. Since the papers were published, the latest iteration, 1st of November to 28th of February 25, has been published by myself. So I'm just going to share that now, bear with. There we go. So this is all the key decisions and exempt items that are scheduled to come to the executive for the next 4-month period. So November, you will note, is very busy. But obviously, for this executive advisory panel, the next meeting is December. December the 13th, so it's only items realistically that are due to come forward sort of January, February that would make it in time to this EAP. So if we skip forward to January, just to see if there's anything that piques your interest across those items. I suspect maybe the private sector housing assistance policy might come to this one, potentially somewhere else. But there's nothing. The February one, all three of those February ones are Claire's finance budget reports. So there's nothing on for February at the moment that would come here. But we do have the forward list of items for the EAP. So we've got communications, consultation and engagement, which is due to come to a future meeting. We've only got 2 meetings left before the May elections. Member case management system is currently slated for the 13th of December meeting, but that communications, consultation, engagement might also come to that. But we can have a word with Guy and Simon to fill the February meeting date, Chair.
Yeah, nothing else jumps out except for those. Maybe I suppose the assets, but does the assets cover us or?
The assets would probably go to prosperous communities.
Right. Okay. Any thoughts, anybody? Oh, shall we?
Nothing jumps out on from the forward plan, so it'd be good to hear the councillor case management system. Did you say that would be interesting? But you said that's coming to December.
Yeah, member case management system.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
It was originally slated to come to this one, but it got pushed back to December because it's not quite ready, but it's hovering around being ready, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that would be a useful one. Okay.
That was it, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And I have no any other business, so thank you very much for your time. And exactly at 3 o'clock, I close the meeting.